All right, welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video. We've been trying to do this live stream. We've been testing this out, so if you've been watching this video, we are trying to bring our videos to live streaming so that way you guys can watch it and answer some questions about some running backs for this year's NFL draft. Richard, you ready to discuss the top 20 running backs that this draft is going to take?
Absolutely. I've been watching football all day. I'm fired up.
All right. Well, let's introduce the Fantasy Goodfellas, and then we'll get started.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, Richard. We're getting ready to discuss the top 20 running backs in this year's NFL draft. Let's just jump right into it. Who do you got as the top running back in this year's draft?
All right, this is going to be the top 20 in standard leagues. Obviously, we'll mention PPR, but these are top 20 for standard leagues. Christie Mccaffrey, CMC is number one, and it's obvious why, right? The guy, in a 17-game season, he's going to eclipse 1,000 receiving yards. And then throw in all the yards he's going to rush for, and he is a fantasy monster. Last year, he missed 13 games. This is true, but I expect him to be healthy. He's young. He's in phenomenal shape. I think injury is not going to be an issue. The issue is going to be Sam Darnold. I don't like Sam Darnold, but that offense is going to go through CMC. I expect him to have a huge year, easily the number one guy.
All right, well, we won't even get into his injuries. What do you think? Let's just jump into the second best running back in this year's NFL draft. Who do you got?
Dalvin Cook. Cook is also a guy that's going to produce catching the ball and rushing. He is a very important part of that offense. Probably the offense goes through him, but also Minnesota has, Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Cousins is going to air it out. But Cook is going to be a major part, and he's going to be a guy, with 12, 1,300, 1,400 yards rushing and 500, 600 receiving. Amazing numbers. Listen, if you want to take him first overall, I wouldn't say you're crazy, but, you can make the argument for him, but I have him at number 2.
Before we move on, he had some injuries last year. What do you think about his recovery going into this season?
Cook missed, I think, 2 games last year. He's missed a game or two, almost every season. He's never been 100% healthy. So yeah, you can make the argument he's more of an injury risk than is CMC. But taking that into account, he's still a dynamic, explosive player. And even if he plays 14, 15 games next year, 13 games, he's going to be a difference maker. So
let's move on to the third best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
Derrick Henry. He eclipsed 2,000 yards last year. That offense in Tennessee goes through Henry. Henry's going to get a lot of carries, but therein lies a problem, right? He's had 681 carries in the last 2 seasons. So, usage, you got to worry about injury potentially. Wear and tear, that's a lot of carries. But other than that, he's going to be good for a lot of carries and a lot of yards. So hopefully he doesn't get injured, but I like him at number 3.
Now, Derrick Henry's obviously a top running back. Do you think Julio Jones is going to eat into any of his production?
No. And we talk about it in other videos. That offense relies on the running game. Derrick Henry opens everything up for Tannehill. It's not the other way around. If the offense relied on Tannehill, it would be miserable. You can't lean on Tannehill. I'm sorry for all the Tennessee and Tannehill fans. I'm not a fan. I think the guy's a good NFL quarterback. I just don't think he's the superstar people are making him out to be now all of a sudden. He's not. He's a game manager. So anyway, that doesn't matter if they got Julio Jones. It doesn't matter if they have Ajay Brown. That offense goes through Derrick Henry.
All right, yeah. Last year we had plenty of people, every time that we mentioned Tannehill or we ranked him low, they were complaining. So let's just move on to the running backs this year. The fourth best running back in this year's draft. Who do you think that is?
Alvin Kamara, a guy that won a lot of fantasy championships last year because, people were letting him slide a little. There were injury concerns. He went on to have a phenomenal season. Didn't matter who was his quarterback. Drew Brees missed a lot of games. It didn't matter. Hill got in. It didn't matter who the quarterback was. Kamara produced. And that's going to happen again this year. And I think they're going to get it. They're going to get it right in New Orleans, whether it's Winston or Hill at quarterback. And Kamara's going to play a major role in the offense. And he's going to be great. And I love him at 4. Some people might draft him at 3. I got no problem with that either. He's, 3A, 3B, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara.
All right. Let's go to the top 5 or the 5th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
So this is the second tier, right? Those first 4 are like in a class of their own. And then second tier, now you have Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was the number 4 running back in most scoring formats last year. We love him in the combine, right? He's fast, he's explosive, he's strong, he's a bull, right? He has a lot of things. And the concern last year was, Frank Reich wanted to give the ball to Marlon Mack and to Hines. And come on, man, it was getting frustrating. And then finally, toward the end of the season, because of injury, because of other reasons, they freed him, and Taylor went on to do very well. So, and Frank Reich is saying the right things now in the preseason. He's saying, he's going to be our guy. We're going to use him a lot. We're going to lean on him. So for that reason, I have him at number 5.
Yeah, last year you were high on him, and it seemed to take a first half of the season before he really got going. And at the end of the year, you kind of came true on your high praise for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I had him as a sleeper. I was telling people, jump on this guy. Second round, jump on him, and those that did obviously benefited.
All right, moving on. Let's discuss the 6th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
Nick Chubb. So Chubb is an amazing rusher. He is, maybe the best pure rusher in football. His problem is Kareem Hunt is on that team as well. He's another good running back. You got to give him touches too. I understand what Cleveland is doing. It worked last year. That's fine. And then the other drawback is Baker Mayfield. I'm not a fan. So you have Baker Mayfield as your quarterback, and you have to deal with Kareem Hunt. So that's what pushes Nick Chubb back. I mean, last year he was also injured, so there is that injury risk. But if Nick Chubb, say Kareem Hunt was traded or got hurt, and Nick Chubb was getting a bulk of those carries, my goodness, what he can do. So I like him. I love him. I love him at 6. I think Nick Chubb is fantastic.
All right, so the 7th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
Aaron Jones. And Aaron Jones' stock is going up, right? Now that Aaron Rodgers it appears he's going to be playing for the Packers. If Rodgers would have left, I probably would have dropped Aaron Jones to the 2nd round, maybe even further down. But Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Aaron Jones is going to catch passes. He's the kind of guy that can, take short gains and take it to the house. Very, very shifty, elusive. The concern with him, he's not good. He's not a goal line back. AJ Dillon is probably going to get the goal line carries. So that's what holds Aaron Jones back, but I have him at 7. That's a great offense in Green Bay. It's going to be very good.
Yeah, I like Aaron Jones. He can have one of those explosive, high fantasy points with his threat to catch the ball. So let's move on to the 8th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got? Who do you like?
Saquon Barkley. Barkley has the talent to be the number 1 back, right? Number 1 overall guy, right? He's fast, he's strong, he's elusive. has great instincts. He catches the ball well. I mean, you name it, Barkley has it. He's a 3-down back. Like, he can be a bell cow, all of that stuff. But, you know, it's coming back from an ACL, MCL tear. They're bringing him in slowly, bringing him back slowly. I don't know how many touches he's going to get, you know, weeks 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what holds me back from drafting him too early, and I have him at 8. But if you're a risk taker, if you're fine with your first round pick not producing for you know, a quarter of the season, or you just want him for your playoff run, fine. But I just think you need more from your early first round pick. But Saquon Barkley is an amazing talent, and hopefully he's healthy.
Yeah, so you have no problems with his injury, him coming back from his injury?
No, again, a young guy in great shape. I don't think he's going to have a problem coming back. Same thing as CMC. His problem is his quarterback, Daniel Jones. I don't know about Daniel Jones. So obviously that hurts your offense, but we'll see.
All right, let's move on to the 9th best running back in this year's draft. Who you promoting?
Ezekiel Elliott. Because here's the thing. You know, a lot of people like him up at 5. They like him a little bit higher. You know, Dak Prescott is back, you know, and that offense has, you know, CeeDee Lamb, and it's got Amari Cooper. Things are going to open up for Zeke. Well, last year, Zeke, I mean, I know Dalton was the quarterback for a little bit, and don't do it, Chicago. Don't make him your starter. Please, put in Fields. God, I don't even know why they signed Dalton. But Dalton was there with the Cowboys last year. He was terrible. He got hurt. Then who knows who came in after that? Everybody was terrible. It was terrible situation in Dallas. And people were saying, oh, that's why Ezekiel Elliott didn't perform the way he did. No, I mean, I watched a lot of those Cowboy games. Elliott looked like a guy that wasn't trying much. You know, he was going down. He wasn't fighting for extra yards. I don't know. So I have questions about his, you know, his desire, his hunger right now. Like, you know, I'm that's why I have him at 9. I'm not going to draft a guy like that early. He had a bad season last year. And you know, it's not like, oh, you know, we'll you know, he's going to come back and have this amazing season. There's no guarantee. It doesn't matter who's around him because he looked horrible last year. Yeah. Well, I mean, considering what our expectations were, you know, sure, he's a good NFL running back, but the expectations were so high for him.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
One thing you mentioned was his desire, and he's not as hungry to play. And I would have to say that he is hungry, just not to play, because, you know, he likes to eat it up.
Yeah, that's right. He's always eating. No, but it just, yeah, he, you know, he signed a big contract. He got his money. He didn't look like a guy that was, maybe he has something to prove. Maybe he has a chip on his shoulder this season, and that's, I think, what people are banking on. But not me. Like, oh, I'll take him all day at the end of the first round, but I'm not taking him at number 5. No way.
Yeah. Well, let's discuss the 10th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
All right. Here's a little bit of a risk. Ajay Harris. It takes us back to last year, right? When we were warning people about Clyde Edwards-Lair. He was getting taken way too high. And now you're saying Ajay Harris in the first round, the rookie, but he's in a very good situation. We know what Ajay Harris can do, right? We saw him what he did in Alabama. He's a power back. He can catch balls out of the backfield, very, very athletic. And now he's the number 1 running back in Pittsburgh. They have a decent offense. Tomlin likes to, you know, he likes to spread it out. But I like Ajay Harris at 10. I really do. I'm comparing him to the other backs that are available here, and I'd be willing to take that risk at 10.
All right, let's move on. Let's discuss the 11th best running back. Who are you promoting?
Austin Eckler, but Eckler is right now he's a little shaky at 11. Earlier on, I was excited about him, right? Because I tell people he's a sleeper. It's not a big name, but Eckler can easily, he can catch for 1,000 yards as well, like CMC. Obviously, he's not going to rush for as many yards. And goal line situations, he's not going to be the guy, but he's going to catch a lot of passes. And, if you believe in Justin Herbert, obviously that's going to translate. It's going to bode well for Austin Eckler. The problem is right now, the talk in LA for the Chargers is that, they want to give, other backs. They want to basically have like a running back committee. They're not going to lean on Eckler all the time. And if they're just going to keep him for like third downs, he's definitely not going to be worth an 11th overall pick. But that might just be coach speak. That's not how they've used him in the past. So we'll see.
All right, let's move on to the 12th
And
best.
then obviously in PPR leagues, Austin Eckler could be a guy you can draft in the late first round. But go ahead.
All right, let's go on to the 12th best running back in this year's draft. Who are you liking?
Joe Mixon. And Mixon, if he stays healthy, he can easily get 1,200 yards rushing, 500 receiving, maybe even better than that. He's got a good quarterback in Joe Burrow. Burrow's coming back from injury. We'll see. That's a little tougher. His comeback is not going to be as easy as CMC or Saquon Barkley's. I think it's a tougher position to come back from like serious knee injury, and then you have the question marks on the offensive line. I mean, they got him his college teammate, right? But they should have drafted Penei Sewell. They should have patched up that offensive line. They still have a bad offensive line. So there's plenty of questions here all this keeps Mixon at 12.
Yeah. And Bernard had some good games last season, right? So with him gone,
that's another thing. I'm glad you brought up Giovanni Bernard. Yeah, Giovanni Bernard's not going to be there anymore. So that gives Joe Mixon a little bump up, right? Because he'll probably still share with somebody else, but Giovanni Bernard is such a good pass catcher that he definitely affected the third down issue and passing downs. But now Joe Mixon might get the bulk of that, and if he does, I mean, it bodes well for him. Things are setting up well for him if Joe Burrow is healthy. I think he's going to do well, regardless of the offensive line.
all right, so the 13th best running back in this year's draft, who you picking?
Antonio Gibson. Gibson was a big surprise last year. Like we've mentioned before, in college, his last year in college in Memphis, he didn't carry much. But I guess Washington saw something in him and gave him an opportunity. He ran for it. He looked great last year. Every time I saw him play, I mean, again, we always laugh. I saw him against the Cowboys twice, and he looked like a world beater against the Cowboys. But everybody did. So, but still, he looked good. He looked, he looked elusive. He looked strong. He looked the part. And now the word is he's also going to be playing on passing downs and catching more passes. If that's the case, I mean, he can have a great season. He's also an underrated guy because he's an unknown, and people doubt, is he going to do it again? But at 13, he's well worth the risk.
All right, let's move on to the 14th best pick in this year's draft. Who do you have?
At 14, Clyde Edwards-Lair. My hope is, obviously, we warned everybody he wasn't going to meet the expectations he had last year. But now the bar's been lowered, and now it might have been lowered too much. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still going to be the primary running back for the best offense in the league, right? An amazing offense in Kansas City. That's going to open up a lot of opportunities, and I think he's going to score more touchdowns than he did last year. And so for that reason, I have him as my 14th back. I think people are too down on him this year. Well, he was getting overhyped last year. Now they're too down on him. So I think the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle there.
Somewhere in the middle, yeah. The only problem is there's just too many weapons, and like you mentioned before, our quarterback just likes throwing the ball around. So, I think he gets a lot of touches as a receiver, and that's where he got a lot of his points. So if he spreads the ball around, that means less production. Any thoughts on that?
No, yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's a pass-first offense, and Andy Reid likes to spread it out. I get all that, but I still think, because there's such a high-powered offense that there's going to be a lot of opportunities to score. And he was very bad last year in short yardage situations. He can't be as bad as he was last year. So I think some of those runs where he was stuffed last year, he's going to get through. So it's just, the law of averages. He's bound to score more because that offense is too good. And you can call him vulture touchdown, whatever. He's going to score more. So I don't love Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I think as he's my 14th best back.
All right, let's move on to the 15th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you got?
David Montgomery. David Montgomery looked, when Tariq Cohen went down and he was getting a lot of touches, he did great. He did great. Montgomery's a good back. The problem is Tariq Cohen is back from injury, right? So he's gonna be the passing down running back. So now you have a guy that's gonna touch it, on first and second down. But here's the positive. Coach Matt Nagy says, hey, this year I want to get him the ball, and he's talking about Montgomery, David Montgomery. I want to get him the ball 300 times. So I'm like, whoa. Yeah, his floor is very high if he's going to get 300 carries. So for that reason, I have him at 15, and I think he could he could be a top 10 back if he really does get 300 carries. We'll see.
All right, so the 16th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you like?
J.K. Dobbins. Now, Dobbins also has his issues. Uber talented back, right? But he's in an offense with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards, right? Lamar Jackson's going to get a lot of those rushing touchdowns taken away from J.K. Dobbins. And forget the passing game. We were just talking about it. Lamar Jackson passed for under 3,000 yards last year, right? In almost a full season. Like I tell people, that's not good. And so this is not a passing offense. So unless here's the one thing that can happen. Mark Andrews right now, the tight end for the Ravens, he's the safety blanket for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson likes to throw a lot of underneath stuff, So what if J.K. Dobbins becomes that guy? He takes Andrews' place. That would be fantastic for J.K. Dobbins and Dobbins owners. But I think he's also going to get a lot of touches. He's going to score touchdowns. That offense likes to run. But because he has to share with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards and catch many passes. We don't expect him to, at least. That holds his value down. But he's very talented. He's another guy. Gus Edwards gets hurt. Lamar Jackson gets hurt. And J.K. Dobbins' value goes up. If they get in a passing quarterback and they have to, he's going to dominate all the running situations in the goal line, the red zone. So anyway, that's my take on J.K. Dobbins. I like him a lot. It's just his situation holds him back.
All right, so the 17th best running back in this year's draft. Who you liking?
Chris Carson. Here's a guy that in 2019 had about 280 carries, and then last year had about 140 carries, so half as many carries for multiple reasons. One of them being that Seattle defense was, horrible. They were really bad last year. They started to get it together toward the end of the season, but they were really bad, forcing Wilson to throw a lot of passes, and they didn't need Carson. Obviously, they were chasing people. This year, Pete Carroll wants to be committed to the run. We expect more touches for Chris Carson. We hope Carson gets it. Carson gets those carries. So that's why I have Carson at 17. I expect a bump up. Maybe not, to 2020 levels, 2019 levels.
All right, let's move on to the 19th best running back in this year's draft.
No, 18.
All right. I'm already ready to speed up. Who do you like as the 18th best running back in this year's draft?
DeAndre Swift. And here's another guy, super talented in a bad situation. The line signed Jamal Williams. They're hyping him up now. You know, they're saying, "Oh, Jamal Williams, he's the #1 back. He does a lot of things." And you know, what about DeAndre Swift? And then Jared Goff is your quarterback. So you went from Stafford to Goff. That's a big downgrade. So for that reason, that holds his value at bay. But if DeAndre Swift, when they freed him last year and he got a lot of touches, he was outstanding. But again, that was with Stafford at quarterback. I don't know how it's going to work with Goff. Goff is definitely going to hurt him. So because of that reason, I think Jamal Williams and him might have a 50-50 split. That holds down his value. So that's why Swift is at 18.
Yeah, my only problem with Swift is he'll save your week. He'll give you plenty of points, and then he'll just disappear for like 2-3 weeks. And then all of a sudden you're like, should I trade him? Should I cut him? He's just too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, his usage last year was super inconsistent. So hopefully it's not the case this year, but it looks it's going to be.
All right, so the 19th best running back in this year's draft. Who do you like?
Daryl Henderson. And Daryl Henderson's a guy that's climbing up. You know, McVay is touting him as the guy. We're going to rely on him. And if he's the #1 running back in that offense, right, he's going to do well. That offense is very good. You know, you're going to have Matt Stafford at quarterback. Then you have Robert Woods. You have Cooper Kupp. And McVay's aggressive. So for all those reasons, Daryl Henderson could end up having a big season. You know, Cam Akers got hurt. Cam Akers would have been like a top 5 pick, top 6, top 7, considering how he ended the season. But he got hurt. Now we have Daryl Henderson. People don't know what to expect. He's number 19 on my list, but he is climbing up.
All right. How is he as a receiver? Is he a good receiver, Henderson?
Daryl Henderson, I really haven't seen much of him catching balls. He's more the guy that fights for yardage. I think he can absolutely catch passes. I'm not saying, if McVay says he's going to lean on him, it's because he's multifaceted, but that wasn't his strength last year.
Yeah, my only fear is McVay is going to have to prove himself with the passing game and kind of air it out with Stafford. So they might lean a lot more to the passing game than giving him a chance to run. So if he doesn't have a lot of yards as a receiver, I think it's going to hurt that team at least for the first 2-3 games. So that's just my thoughts on you're going to have to make up for that big trade that they did. All right, let's go with the last running back, the top 20 running backs in this year's draft. Who do you like at number 20?
Miles Sanders. And here's another guy that's climbing up. People are concerned because they signed, Philadelphia signed Kerryon Johnson. They drafted a running back. Miles Sanders split carries last year with other backs. So they got Jordan Howard over there. They got a lot of backs, and they keep saying they want to use, they want to have a running back committee, and that obviously fantasy owners always hate that. But when Jalen Hurts started playing, which I think Jalen Hurts is definitely an upgrade at quarterback. I'm not a Carson Wentz guy. I think Indianapolis made a mistake. But Miles Sanders is comfortable. They're gonna go RPO heavy, and he's been quoted as saying in training camp that he feels very comfortable in this offense. And he looked very comfortable working with Jalen Hurts at the end of last season. So if that continues and he gets a bulk of the carries, Miles Sanders is very talented. He's the kind of guy that can take any ball to the end zone, any short play and make it a touchdown. So he's number 20 with potential.
All right. Too bad we couldn't continue this conversation because, top 20 running backs pretty much are going to be eaten up in the first 2 rounds. I'd like to go a little further, but we'll save that for another video. Real quick before we go, if anybody's got any questions, how can people find you online?
Well, I'm on Twitter at RI Santa Maria, which is my last name, and which is probably on here somewhere. And also you can just put comments into this video. And any questions, I mean, during the season, that's what we're going to do when we give our weekly rankings. People just normally just in their comments ask questions like, who should I start? Or what do you think of this guy? Do you think, maybe I should drop this player for this player? What have you? I'm always, I like to read all the comments and answer as quickly as I can.
Well, you guys heard it. If you got some questions, I know you helped out several people last year with some indecisiveness or helping them sway one way or the other, so that was cool. And people thanked you a bunch, so that was awesome to see. So, all right, that's going to do it for the top 20 running backs in this year's fantasy draft. Thanks for coming on here and sharing this information. I haven't done any research, so I go back and watch this video, and I kind of take some clues too. And we're in the same fantasy league, so at least I'll know what you're thinking.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're going to have the inside track.
All right. Well, for the Fantasy Goodfellas, I'm Ryan, and he's Richard, and we're out.
The Fantasy Goodfellas. The Fantasy Goodfellas.